Hello, and warm welcome to all of you. Today, we welcome Brendan Larson for this fireside chat. Brendan is a senior vice president and general manager of Mavenir's Multimedia business unit. He joined Mavenir from Tango Networks, where he earlier served as the chief strategy officer. As a former employee of Mavenir, he has run the sales engineering organization of America's region and has been instrumental in many of Mavenir's key initiatives and projects, including the world's first IMS, Voice or Wi-Fi, VoLTE, and RCS service launches. He has held previously leadership roles in companies like Nokia and Sienna. And Brandon has started his career as a nuclear engineer, nuclear engineering officer in the United States Navy. And he's a graduate of the Navy Nuclear Power School and has received his nuclear engineer certification from the Department of Naval Reactors. And he has been a Bachelor of Science student with chemical engineering and has graduated with high honors from the Rutgers University. With this, I would like to welcome Brandon. A very warm welcome to you, Brandon. Thanks for making time for this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rahul. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
So Brandon, this panel specifically is with regard to the global adoption and interest in SDN and NFV with network virtualization happening at a very fast pace. There's been a significant amount of interest both from customers and telco operators alike in understanding what is the kind of new age technologies and how can networks be modernized with agility, with low cost and benefits towards all. So let me start with the question to you is that, with a lot of interest coming in SDN and NFV, and there's an need to understand what is the kind of investment that it requires to implement and what are the benefits that operators get by investing in NFV and SDN in the long term.
Yeah, it's a good question. And it does take investment to get there. And I think the operators have to understand what that investment gets them. So just kind of to go back in history a little bit, the precursor to NFV and SDN was virtualization. And the business case there was really around CapEx savings. So with virtualization, operators could leverage, commercially off-the-shelf hardware. They could take advantage of industry advancements. For instance, with each new, generation of server, the price per P core, gigabit of RAM, terabit, and so forth goes down. And the second advantage of virtualization was the ability to share hardware amongst applications, resulting in more efficient use of your hardware investment. So what NFV SDN really does is it builds on that virtualization CapEx savings, and it effectively adds a layer of automation to that infrastructure, right? So this really changes the game because this enables the operators to modernize their operations by automating processes, as well as giving them the ability to make changes on the fly. And that operational modernization really does yield three key benefits. One is improved operational efficiency. So if you think about the time and effort it takes to do things like a software deployment or doing a network upgrade, this is dramatically reduced. And operators are really looking to be able to do more with their labor resource investment today, right? The second is efficient use of CapEx. So, even though they bought the hardware capacity and they're sharing it, with NFV SDN, you're able to now dynamically allocate that amongst applications. So before with virtualization, which is kind of a static deployment, right? But with NFV SDN, you can start shifting it around, right? Meeting service demand. So it's a much more efficient operational model. And really the third, and kind of the, at the end of the day, what all this amounts to is increased innovation. Because once you actually start operating more efficiently, it means you can launch services in less time with lower cost, and that means lower risk. And think about it, if you can start launching services with lower cost, lower risk, you can afford to make more bets. And if you can make more bets in the marketplace, you can innovate. So, NFV SDN is really about building on the CapEx savings of virtualization and transforming your business model through operational modernization.
Brendan, based on what you've seen in the market, and I'm sure since you operate across a lot of geographies, what is the kind of best approach that an operator can take to be successful? Because operators will always have this initial hesitancy in getting to this route because they've been used to the kind of infrastructure or the kind of model wherein OEMs get and put everything in place, and it has to be a hardware box. There's a separate box for everything. So and so there's a fair bit of hesitation around. So what is the best approach that would be there for an operator to be successful and take this route?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And in terms of the approaches in the marketplace, we've really seen two, right? In one approach, operators are like, hey, I need to go NFV SDN. They're trying to make a strategic decision to invest, and they're not quite sure about what the business or operational benefits are at the start of it. They're just saying this is really a technology-led decision. And so their decisions are really based around like, I'll make a technological choice. I'll invest in best of breed technologies. Now, the risk with this approach that we've seen, right, from experience, is that you kind of tend to risk it becomes an ongoing technical project and you continue to consume money, but you really don't get a tangible business result, right? Now, the other approach we've seen, we've had some operators that approach it a different way. So instead of coming in from a technology or planning aspect, they actually drove it from their operational organization. And they start with, hey, what is the tangible business or operational objective that we want to achieve, right? So some examples may be, we want to reduce a network upgrade cycle from 3 months to 3 days, right? Very tangible operational benefit. Or we want the ability to scale up on demand to meet these peak demands on these days and then scale down the peak or reshift the capacity over. Or maybe third, we've also seen like, we just want to be more agile, right? We want to be able to make changes to the network at any time, not worry about a maintenance window, and effectively eliminating that inefficiency of schedules being dependent on things like maintenance windows, right? So with that approach, they were able to implement solution in phases, right? With each phase focusing on a specific tangible business result. So let me give you an example on the first one with a tier one, where we did the first approach, the technology-driven approach. So we implemented a function called auto healing. And the only reason we did it was because it was just a technical lifecycle management requirement, right? That was part of that technical project. And, the capability, what it did is it allowed for, an instance of an application to be reinstantiated if there was an underlying server failure, right? So we spent a lot of time, effort, and money, setting it up, and it was really cool technology and it all worked. And we finally got feedback from the operations department after we delivered it. And you know what their response was? They're like, hey guys, we have about 1 server failure per month. And the difference between automating it and what we've already have is that just pushing a button, you're effectively saving us 1 button push a month, right? So, that specific function, although it's like a lot of technical muscle behind it, it really wasn't producing a tangible benefit for the operation or key stakeholder, right? So the lesson really learned in that is, first start with the business and operational problem to be addressed, and then let that guide your approach to implementing an NFV SDN solution.
Absolutely. So that makes it makes more sense to look at the business drivers and the demand drivers rather than and looking at SDN NFV as an enabler to get there, rather than looking at the technology first and saying then what is the use that the technology can be put to.
Absolutely.
And probably that would lead to a more widespread acceptance amongst the key stakeholders in making this decision to go ahead.
Yeah, and it really is the key for adoption, because at the end of the day, there's going to be an executive who's going to look at all the money invested and go, what did it do for my business? And you have to be able to answer that question to get more investment and to keep the momentum in the technology.
Absolutely. So, we just, spoke about, Mavenir's, large R&D back office in India. So in terms of the whole Mavenir as a global organization, what role does India play in market leading SDN NFV solutions, and what is the kind of IP that you have been able to successfully produce from India and take to the world?
Yeah, India plays quite a big role in Mavenir's NFV SDN programs. First of all, we have multiple development centers throughout India. So we've got development centers located in Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai. So very big presence in India. And we started on the NFV SDN journey. We started with actually a software-based platform and then moved to virtualization, now to NFV SDN. So that journey started well over a decade ago. And, we've really been developing that whole cloud competency in India for some time now, right? So we're really building up a core competency in the Indian market. And, we've become the market leader in IMS NFV solutions. And those are the solutions that we develop in India. And then we take that and export it. And we've been deploying that globally. In fact, if you look at our largest NFV SDN deployment, it's across 32 data centers with a capacity of 150 million subs. That was effectively exported from India into the US, right? In a big tier one is our biggest deployment. And we've also deployed the IMS NFV SDN solutions in India as well. And, the key is we aren't stopping there, right? We've been on a journey for over a decade, starting with software platforms, virtualization, NFV, like I said. And the next step is moving into containers. So, the IP we're now developing out of India, we're building on the NFV SDN experience. And now we're shifting to containers and Kubernetes that also brings with it a much more advanced automation and intelligent analytics on top of what we've already got with NFV SDN. So, big picture, Mavenir continues to develop cloud technology expertise in India that can be leveraged by the rest of the world.
Thank you, Brendan. Very, very, informative session with you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me today, Rahul. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.